We look at exercise and, eating well, but at the end of the day, there's nothing that impacts your life more profoundly than your state of mind. So if you can change that, it changes everything.
All right, hey, it's Joel from The Hacked Life. I'm here with Angela Martinucci. Angela, you're a human potential coach. You're a Theta Healer, but I think what you're most known for is being a Neuroptimal Neurofeedback Practitioner. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And this is beautiful. We're here in El Cerrito, California, in your office. We've just set your son Enzo up. We're doing some neurofeedback right now. It's amazing. So one of the things I thought is powerful is if you could tell the audience just how you came about neurofeedback. Like, how did you stumble upon this?
Yeah. So, well, not along the best path, but that's how we find things, right? So, I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer when I was 33, and I went through all the traditional treatments and chemo and 4 surgeries and radiation, and just
Wow.
kind of fell into a black hole afterwards. That's the only way I can explain it, but I was just unable to function. Chemo, brain fog, and anxiety, and just a lot of issues, trouble sleeping. And so, actually, my aunt, who had been involved with neurofeedback for a long time, I wasn't really aware of what it was at the time, but she saw that I just wasn't getting better, and she said, I think you should try this thing called neurofeedback. So I learned about it that way, and Neuroptimal was the first technology that I used. And so started using it. Actually, the first thing that I noticed was my golf game improving. And
Oh, that's a plus.
yeah.
Yeah. Who cares about the cancer? The golf game
Right,
is
right.
getting
The
better.
golf game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed, oh, I haven't hit the ball like that before. This is interesting. So yeah, then it all of a sudden, life was getting better. I was sleeping, everything was improving. And it was really subtle and seamless, actually. I just kind of found myself in this new normal of functioning and going to the grocery store and remembering my groceries and,
Wow.
that kind of thing that was like, oh, this is interesting. I'm functioning again. So it wasn't like an all of a sudden like, oh, you're amazing, you're, better.
You're healed.
Right. So I was serving on the board of directors for a young survivor group here in the Bay Area, and we were on a weekend retreat, and I was talking to some of the ladies before they were going to bed, and they were saying, oh, I got to go take my Xanax and Ativan, and mentioning all the drugs that they had to go take to go get sleep and to,
Wow.
for their anxiety. And it
These
just
are all
like,
survivors of cancer. Wow.
yeah, young, all women 45 and under diagnosed with breast cancer in the Bay Area. It's a
Mm.
very specific group called BAYS. So it's an amazing organization, and I've been with them for, I'm 10 years out from a diagnosis, so I've been with them for
Wow.
quite some time. But it was just like this aha moment of like, oh, I'm not grabbing for, antidepressants or, all these things that I was just hoping would help me. I'm better, I'm sleeping. And so I thought, okay, there's something to this. Like maybe I am meant to bring this to this community, because it's not okay that these women are going through treatment and then being left out to like, oh, here's a pill for everything to function for the rest of your life, and you're 35 years old.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the, aha moment. And then I went to see my oncologist, and he said, oh, you're doing better. I can see from across the room, and, the
Mm.
meds are working. I said, no, I threw those away, but I'm doing this thing called neurofeedback. And he's like, what? He has this integrative space in San Francisco where he has an acupuncturist, a massage therapist, dietitian, and they all work as a team for patients. And it was my lifeline going through treatment. Amazing space and really incredible doctor. So he said, oh, well, we need this here. You can have this office here. And so that's actually where I started working with a lot of cancer patients there. And fast forward, I got busier. I live on this side of the bay, so I got busier over here with clients. The storefront space came available, so I started working here. And yeah, here we are. Lots happened since then, but
Yeah.
we're going to talk
And we're
about
gonna
that.
we're gonna chat about that. It's crazy because just hearing you talk about that vulnerability and just that malaise that you were in.
Hmm.
I remember my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer as well, and I remember just after her being diagnosed, and sure it got removed, and the way that great, it got removed and you're healed now, or
Yeah.
you're okay for now.
Yeah.
But I really remember her struggling for a good amount of time. I can't remember how long, 6 months, a year, where she just wasn't herself.
Yeah.
And you could tell her confidence was gone, and she was just, you could see she felt just vulnerable and almost broken. And I know she's going to listen to the podcast, so it's not in any way to like say that, hey, that, you know, you didn't rise up to the occasion. It's not judging her. It's just, wow, like I could see just looking at her, it was like her shell was shocked. And I remember thinking, and I think she even told me like I feel like there was a chink in my armor, like I've been hit, I've been touched almost like by death, like and that's scary. And it's so cool to hear you say, because that's not something I would have ever thought about with cancer treatment. I guess I'm very just black and white logical and just thinking, okay, well, this is if you want to go from like the Western doctor, just okay, we're going to prescribe medicines, we're going to do this, we're going to take it out, we're going to cut it out, or even if you're going to go with a biohacking approach and you're going to, use antifungals or whatever you're going to do to balance the body and take it out. But I would never think about the mental and mind component of it. So
Yeah, no, it changes everything. And I think some people can continue in a space of like, I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't found the neurofeedback, because I just felt like, I was prior to the diagnosis, I was a nutritionist and a personal chef for people with special dietary needs and nutrition consultant. So it wasn't like I was, drinking whatever and, I was growing my own vegetables. It wasn't
you're a
something
health
that I
conscious person.
expected. Yeah. Yeah. I had 2 little kids and, they said, oh, nurse your kids. That helps. Like I thought I had crossed all the, oh, you won't get cancer, no family history.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a bit of like feeling like your body has turned on you and, but it does, I think you can also allow it. For me, it was just a wake up and changing my whole perspective on life. So it gives me, every day is a new day, and I live in a state of gratitude as a result of that. So, I wouldn't take it away for anything. So,
when you were doing the neurofeedback, how back can you remember how many times you had to do it, or that you were doing it before you started feeling some ease?
yeah, it was. I would say it was within a couple months. I wasn't doing it super frequently, maybe once a week, something like that. I wish I had taken, better care of logging it, but I was just kind of floundering on my own at the time, because I actually had a system of my aunt's that I was using at home, but I didn't really have that guidance that I could have used at the time. I just like, what is this thing that I'm doing? Is it helping? Is it not?
Yeah. And the reason you chose Neurooptimal, was that just serendipitous that your aunt had it? Was there any other reason, like, oh, I want this brand versus another one? It was
I
just
didn't
that
do any research. I had never heard of neurofeedback. I would have done anything to feel better. So
completely.
yeah.
And then just for the audience, you and I are straight up biohackers. We love this stuff. We live and breathe it. What is, just a general term, like what's neurofeedback for people that don't know?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of different things that are that will say they are neurofeedback. So, I guess generally it's anything that uses EEG technology to create change in the brain. So, measuring the electrical activity of the brain to create change or give the brain information about what it's just done.
Very cool. And there's a device out there called a Muse. I think they use like EEG. They measure like the EEG, and then what they're known for is actually helping people meditate better or get into a state of meditation
Exactly.
using the EEG. What's the biggest difference you think between someone going out and buying a $200 Muse versus a neurooptimal system?
Yeah, the biggest difference is that the Muse is teaching somebody how to meditate, which is great. So anytime somebody can, get in that space and learn to meditate, I don't have any problem. Meditation's amazing. But Neuroptimal is brain training. So it's training the whole central nervous system. So for long-term change. And I think the long-term change is the biggest component. So it's not like once you stop, you lose the progress that you've made. Whereas a lot of these gadgets, that you use them and maybe you feel better in the moment that you're using them. Or, with the Muse, maybe it kicks off a meditation practice, which is great. And there's all the incredible benefits of that.
Right,
So.
right. then for neurofeedback, there's a couple neurofeedback systems out there that I'm aware of. You got the Neurooptimal, which I think uses like some kind of dynamic technique, which hopefully you can kind of talk about. And then there's other systems out there that I believe use what's called like a linear type of feedback.
Exactly.
And like I know Dave Asprey, if you go to 40 Years of Zen for a week, he's actually specifically, and I don't want to speak for Dave, but I think if you go to his, or there's another one called the Brain Institute in LA, and they specifically like try to put your brain in a certain state based on the EEG.
Right.
So how is Neurooptimal different than, say, some of these other linear feedbacks?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. So Neuroptimal is considered dynamical training, and there's other places and other types of neurofeedback that you mentioned are linear. So linear meaning they typically use a QEEG and map the brain, and they are targeting specific frequencies, like you mentioned. So you come in, you have anxiety, we're going to push this frequency, or uptrain or downtrain certain frequencies. And with Neuroptimal, so the central nervous system is the most complex nonlinear dynamical system in the universe. I just love that.
Just saying.
Just love that
Yeah.
line. But so who are we to say what's best for that system?
Yeah.
So with Neuroptimal, it's working with that system dynamically. So dynamically training the central nervous system. So giving it feedback about what it just did and allowing the brain to decide. So the biggest difference is instead of pushing the brain and saying, you need to be this way, we're saying, this is what you're doing. This is what you just did. This is what you just did. And the brain goes, oh, and it knows how to self-correct. So that's all we're doing is providing, just like, when you look in a mirror, you look in a mirror and maybe you haven't looked at a mirror in a while, you're fixing your hair, you realize you have spinach in your teeth. It gives you feedback, immediate
Right.
feedback. So that's really what the brain training is doing, is it's telling the brain, hey, you just did this. Did you want to do that? And it's allowing the brain to decide. So, it's very different. And it's interesting because I've seen people come from other types of neurofeedback. And I mean, all neurofeedback is great. I don't have an issue with any of them. But what I find that's been interesting is people that might come from another linear approach. They say, oh, yeah, well, my anxiety got a bit better. And, but then they come and do this. And all of a sudden they're confident and they're sleeping better. And all these other pieces of their life change along with the anxiety, because you're allowing the brain you're training this resilience and flexibility in the brain, which everything changes as a result, not just the one linear thing that you're looking at changing. So, with that, you have to keep that in mind as well. So somebody might come in and say, oh, well, I want to improve my sleep. Well, maybe their confidence improves first, or, whatever it is at the brain, they become more productive. So it's not, we're just training the brain, and whatever the brain needs to, however it shows up in terms of the optimization for that person, it might be different for each person.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You would think it almost reminds me of like functional medicine doctors. A lot of functional medicine doctors like to get to the root cause of the problem. Like, you might say, I have sleep issues, I have this.
Yeah.
But if I just try to go after your sleep and I'm not really open to what's really going on that's affecting your sleep, but I just think, oh, okay, you have sleep issues? Here's what you do. Put on some blue blockers at night, take some melatonin, take some L-theanine, take some magnesium. Sleep is going to be better, I promise. Versus saying, hey, what's really going on? Let's look under the hood. Let's run some labs, et cetera, et cetera. And like I said, I don't have a dog in the race either. I don't know, but it's interesting. You would think that's actually probably a better approach, what Neuroptimal is doing, just thinking in that mindset versus, like you said, attacking a specific brainwave or frequency. Yeah, you're right. It might help just the sleep, but maybe the other things don't improve.
Yeah. I mean, you're tapping into what I consider the intrinsic wisdom of the central nervous system to be its best self. Like we all have that innate ability, and so it's interesting to see how many things become, like how the central nervous system becomes dysregulated through, life experience, trauma, lack of sleep, so many different things, medications, and it can come back to balance and optimal functioning, pretty easily. So,
you gave me a system to actually use for 2 weeks, which was amazing. And so I got to use the system. And one of the things I noticed is it plays this amazing music. It's just super relaxing. And as I'm listening to the music, though, I would hear like pauses or scratches kind of in the music. It'd be playing, and then you'd kind of hear a couple scratches. What is that?
Yeah, so that is giving feedback to the brain. That's the feedback. So that's saying, hey, you just did that. So it's alerting the brain of its own behavior and what it just did. So it's just information. It's just providing information to the brain. And so the brain is able to decide based on that
That
information.
that is that like a record scratch? Like, oh, got a scratch in your record, or the brain is there's something of maybe instability or quote unquote
Well,
going on.
it's alerting the brain, and it's not negative or positive. It's just alerting the brain that, hey, a change is about to occur. So when there's a change about to occur, there's what we consider a flutter. So if you look at like hummingbirds, they make a little sound before they move. And so it's that same flutter that the EEG is picking up on, and it's saying, hey, a change is about to occur. And the brain goes, oh, okay. Did I want to do that? Did I want to continue doing that? One of the analogies that we like to use is when you're driving down the road, and everybody knows this feeling of you hit the rumble strip on the road and you
Yeah.
immediately
Course
correct
right?
yourself.
Yeah.
But if you meant to change lanes, you would just continue to go, right? And so the brain is the same. If it's means to go to whatever it's doing, it will continue to go there. So we're not pushing it in a certain way. We're just giving it this awareness of what it's doing.
Another quick question. While I was under the Neurooptimal, while I was doing it, I would set up my profile and everything, and it was the same music every time. Is that normal, or can you change tracks?
You can load whatever music you want. Yeah, you can load movies for kids. They can watch a movie, and yeah, so it's
I should have done that for my
yeah,
my 6-year-old. That
right.
would have been a game changer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we'll line that up.
Okay. So yeah, you don't have to. I mean, the track that was played, I enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't getting boring. It's got so many different
Yeah,
undulations and places it takes you. So it didn't bother me. But I was just thinking, oh, is this the only track you can
Yeah,
listen
yeah.
to? You know.
No, people can load whatever playlist they want. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Very cool. So in a nutshell, like, why do you think people should do neurofeedback?
Because we look at exercise and eating well, but at the end of the day, there's nothing that impacts your life more profoundly than your state of mind. So if you can change that, it changes everything.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people find like, oh, I want to meditate, I'm not good at meditating, or they want to create change in that area of their life, but they don't know how to begin. And this is totally passive and non-invasive and super easy to do. I mean, you can like you saw with Enzo, you can read while you're doing a session.
Yeah.
I can sit and work on my emails while I'm doing a session. You can do anything else while you're in the chair. So that's the nice thing about it, is it doesn't have to, you don't have to carve out 30 minutes specifically for that. But, specifically in this day and age, I would say with the impact of just the bombardment of information with technology and
Yeah.
commutes, and we live here in the crazy Bay Area, so there's a lot of stress. And so brain training is amazing for stress. I find, people start reporting, oh, my sleep is better, I'm just bouncing back from stressors, I just feel more calm, and everybody needs that. And we talk about the root of disease, and stress is the leading cause of many diseases. So if
Yeah.
we can help
100%.
to manage that, that can be pretty powerful.
I was just thinking Neurooptimal needs to invent a portable one that like you can put on while you're driving in the car.
Right.
So that you can, as you're in commute traffic, you can
Yeah.
be getting your neurofeedback and just being a little bit more present and pleasant
Exactly.
to the people around you.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, I can envision, having it on those commuter buses, like a little flight
Oh, that's
attendant
great
going
idea.
around and hooking people up, and they're doing their work, and they get their brain training on their commute. So, yeah, I think that potential is there. But
Yeah.
for now, with the EEG pace that we need to use, until there's a headband. So there are some headband technologies out there that use EEG,
Yeah.
but they're not accurate enough for the type of brain training that we do. And so until that is available, which our founder continues to test that.
Very cool.
But yeah, so
Okay, so one of the questions that came up for me as you were talking was you were just saying, why should people do neurofeedback? And you said, well, like the mental game, the mental side is everything. And I couldn't agree more. Like the more I think about just my life and where I'm at, whether it's in my relationship, whether it's in my job, it's all mental. Everything's mental. And then it reminds me of back to doing sports. It reminds me, Tony Blauer, who's a big self-defense guru, but he talks about being like an Olympic skier. Like he was that good, but he never made it to the Olympics. And he says the reason he didn't when he goes back was emotional self-regulation, emotional talk, how he talked to his own self-talk, his own self-worth, and then the mental game, fear, fear, knowing fear and knowing how to disrupt it. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And then it just made me think, man, this is probably everything that I'm saying. It's got to be probably a powerful tool for athletes. So, talk to me about that. Are you? I believe you're doing a lot of work with athletes now because they're starting to see the value of neurofeedback.
Yeah, yeah. So I've worked with, well, even my own kids. So that's kind of where my first experience with, neurofeedback and sports performance. So my daughter is a championship level Irish dancer, but she competes, and you have judges looking at your feet, and it's pretty intense. And I noticed how much the neurofeedback helped her, and she would just go into flow, and she's got a big smile on her face, and you can tell she's just blocked out the external noise. She's performed at the Giant Stadium. I said, "Are you nervous?" "Why would I be nervous?" And this is from a kid who was painfully shy, and the neurofeedback has really helped her to come out of her shell, which I think is amazing because I was the same way
Yeah.
when I was growing up and didn't get out of it until my 30s with the
Yeah.
neurofeedback. So it's incredibly powerful for that. And then with my son with baseball, and I was just mentioning a story where he said, yeah, before neurofeedback, I would strike out and I'd run and cry in the bushes and not come out. And after neurofeedback, I was able to just shake it off and get back on the bench. So I think, that translates to all, everybody. Everybody understands that feeling, but
Yeah.
being able to regulate the emotions. But yeah, I've worked with top CrossFit athletes that have gone to the games, and what they've said is just access to flow. So that performance anxiety just going away and being able to just be in flow state that was really powerful for them. And then last season I worked with the Oakland A's, so I worked with the whole team, minor league guys, and it was really amazing to see what it did for everyone. And sort of the common theme across the board tends to be the sleep, and the performance anxiety is big. And
Yeah.
I would say
How long do they have it?
for the whole season. So they
Okay.
started in January and went through, they got into playoffs in October. So, yeah, the whole season. And so I think one of the powerful things is the resilience. And so, for everybody, the ability to bounce back. So whether
Yeah.
that's a stressor at work, your boss yells at you, either you're sitting spinning on it for the rest of the day and you're depressed, and, or you're able to just bounce back like, oh, whatever. And so for an athlete, having a play that doesn't go well, if they're cycling on that last play, it's
Yeah.
not going to go very well the rest of the game. So that ability to bounce back and be back in the game and present is huge. It's everything. So that, and then just the ability to dial down the noise. These guys have thousands of people
Yeah.
screaming at them and looking at them, and people counting on them, and they're performing at the highest level. So, comments about having the noise turned down, so that, and
Interesting.
to be able to be more in the zone and more present. So, and yeah, just getting into working with some pro golf folks, and, I'm excited about that since, I play golf, and
Yeah.
I saw that in my own game. And so, golf's 90% mental. I mean, really. And the
Yeah.
same with,
Yeah.
I go on site to these pro baseball players, and everybody has the ability. But just this small fraction of people make it to the professional level and make it
Yep.
to the level of starting, and they all have the same skill. But the only difference is really in the mind. That's the only thing that's limiting somebody, like
Yeah.
you say, from performing at that high level. And so I had an opportunity to do some coaching with some of the players, and it's just really interesting to learn, what mental blocks people have, and really what they're thinking when they're out
Yeah.
there. So, yeah, but the Neuroptimal's been amazing, and so I look forward to working with more athletes. I really like it, and so yeah.
No, one of the people you work with, a CrossFit athlete, wasn't she injured?
Uh,
Did she get injured?
well, I worked with one who hit herself with a barbell,
That's what it was.
and so yeah, she had a head injury as a result, and the Neuroptimal really helped her after that incident. She was having a lot of issues afterwards, so
Yeah.
yeah, she's really passionate about it because of that. So,
Yeah. And then I want to say you told me you'd even work with a couple of jujitsu guys. I'm big into martial arts, and you were saying like this is something that has been a game changer for them just pre-competition
oh
and just
yeah,
like again the anxiety,
hmm
and we just said it like this is a mental game. Like
yeah,
life is a mental game. Like sure you're a phenom, you can physically do it,
right.
but it's the mental edge that makes you an Olympian or not.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, anybody in life.
anybody.
The
Yeah.
only thing that holds us back is we get in our own way, right?
Yes.
So, I even going on site and I'm at the Oakland A's spring training on the field talking to all the players, and I said, I'm not here to teach you how to play baseball better. You all have that
Yeah.
ability to play baseball at the highest level. It's about getting out of your own way. And,
Yeah.
it's when you can, it's powerful. So, yeah, the mental chatter, the doubt, the fear,
Hmm.
all of that you talk about.
It reminds me too of this Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink,
Hmm
and he was asked a question. He's very popular right now, and he was asked a question about going through BUDS, the intense Navy SEAL camp,
hmm
and he was asked just like, hey, how did how did you make it through there? Like, what was like a skill or a tactic or a hack that got you through it? And he said, well, reflecting back on that time, he's like, I will tell you this, just like what we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's guys that were in better shape than me. Um, you know, whatever. They could run, they were stronger than me, everything. He's like, but he's like, I went into that camp knowing I was going to pass. He's like, I never thought for a second that I'd be ringing a bell saying I'd quit. It never
hmm
even occurred to me.
hmm
And he said other people, obviously it occurred to them. He's like, never crossed my mind once. He's like, I knew I was going to be a Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
And so I just love that because it
Oh,
just
it's incredibly powerful. Yeah. What we believe, literally what we believe
manifests,
happens.
right?
Yeah.
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 And then I was just thinking, leaders, CEOs,
hmm
people that are giving public, what's like number one fear? Public speaking.
hmm
Like this is a game. Everybody should be doing this
Yeah.
just for that. I
yeah.
mean, alone,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I was incredibly, I couldn't even raise my hand in class to ask a question when I was growing up. And that actually held me back because I was too afraid. I was too shy. I was too afraid. And, fast forward to doing the neurofeedback and being able to go stand on the field in front of, 45 professional baseball
Yeah.
players and not, I slept like a baby the night before. I wasn't, didn't have anxiety going out there.
Yeah.
And in the past, that would have just sent me completely, like it would not have happened
Right.
for
You would
sure.
have been sick.
I would
I'm
have,
gonna
I
call
would have
in.
just said no,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and even to just grow my business the way I have, and but yeah, I've worked with executives who. One of the things that they say that's been most powerful for them is, when you're leading a company, to have this, all of a sudden they found this newfound space, like between the stressor and their reaction to the stressor,
Yeah.
where
The
they can
stimulus before the response, right?
that emotional self-regulation to instead of reacting. And I think that that's such a big thing today because we're so bombarded. We have so much stimulation. We have so many things to do. We're like in this
Yeah.
epidemic of busyness and sympathetic dominance. And so you throw one more thing on somebody, and it's not even a big thing, but you
Yeah.
react like it's a big thing, right? So we're
Yeah.
we're not reacting appropriately to situations, and whether it's parents, whether it's leaders of companies, whether people are screaming at you on the road because you cut in front of them. This can all change when you get out of that
Yes.
state
Get out of the fight or flight.
hmm
Yeah, and it just reminded me, you were talking about leaders and the stimulus before the response. As a leader
Yeah.
leading a company, the first thing that came to my mind was being a parent.
Oh
The
yeah.
stimulus before the response, right? The
Yeah.
the the kid just looking at me with that little devil eye and
hmm
saying, oh, I'm going to do this, or,
Mm-hmm.
and then how am I going to react? How am
Yeah.
I going to show up
Yeah.
in that moment? Um,
And they're just looking for the reaction, right? They're just
yeah,
pushing your buttons. And, that was one of the things I saw when I started doing neurofeedback is I probably used to respond like I was raised to respond
right, right.
to, kids that are misbehaving or whatnot. And as soon as I had that, I just realized that the kids weren't pushing my buttons anymore. I'm thinking, what is going on
Interesting.
here? And I realized that I was just so calm that you weren't going to get a rise out of me. So, yeah, it changes everything. And then, everybody's calm and they're able to communicate
Yeah.
in the proper way. And so,
It's very cool. One of the things that's big for me right now on my mind, besides growing my business as well, is parenting and being a better dad. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do the neurofeedback that you allowed me to use, I got about 6 sessions in, was for parenting,
hmm
because that's something I'm struggling with right now in trying to grow and be better.
yeah.
And we had a lot of conversations just off to the side, and one of the things remarkably that you kept saying to me was, "Hey Joel, once you become better,
hmm
they will become better. They will their actions are going to shift based on how you shift."
hmm
And I thought that was pretty powerful, and that was something that I had to self-reflect and really think about myself, like, who's really the problem here?
hmm
Is it this little 6-year-old who has no prefrontal cortex and it's just trying to
right.
get a rise out of me every second,
Yeah.
or is it me and my own story?
Right.
Because I come with 37 years of stories and
hmm
what I think. And also as a first responder, I think something that you helped me, realize is I really like to be in control.
hmm
And I was also raised that way. Like my father was great. He wasn't like very heavy-handed or something. Yeah, I got spanked when I needed to get spanked, but um, I carry that philosophy in my head,
hmm
is that when I say something, you do it,
Yeah.
and it's just that's not the way it works.
hmm
So I struggle with that myself, and having to deconflict with myself and relax and say, hey, like um, I'm the problem, basically, is what I've got to emotionally self-regulate myself
hmm
and give up some of these ideas of control, because it's just not true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think in all areas of our life, right? The more you can let go and just let things be, the more things actually come to you that you want, and
Yeah.
and the way that it's like if you're driving and you're trying to get somewhere, you end up hitting every red light because you're stressed and you're in a hurry. But if you're just relaxed and you're on the way to your location and your whatever, you get every green light, right?
Right.
So it's interesting, but it's a process, right? To undo the beliefs that we all have and the way we've been wired.
Yeah.
So it's about rewiring and living life in a different way. So, but it takes time.
Takes time. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about first responders? Do you get a lot of those people, firemen, policemen, paramedics, anybody? Do you get a lot of those people coming through your
I
office?
don't
Really?
really, yeah, which is, and I
We got to
think
work on that.
we are going to work
We,
on
we're
that.
gonna
We're going to
we're gonna
work on
tag team on
that.
that
Yeah, yeah.
afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at a new location that has a bigger space and to have multiple chairs with the idea of like a community brain training center. And
Yeah.
so one of my big things is like we want to get back to community. And so that's always been a big passion behind what I do. I know that, the young survivor can't afford maybe the rate that it is per session to come into an office.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at doing is creating an environment where it's more like 4 chairs going at a time. You just come in and get your session and providing access at a lower cost and we've been doing some community days where we give back to community and save, first responders, veterans,
Yeah.
all these people that are, that we want to provide access to. So, yeah, you have to come to
We
that.
got to do
We'll have
something.
you give a talk and
I
invite
will.
all the local first responders in to understand that I think it's the stigma. I think that's what it is. I've
Sure.
had
I
first
think it's a stigma, and I also think it's just a lack of awareness and knowledge,
Oh,
right?
absolutely,
They don't even
absolutely.
know about this.
No,
This
no.
this thing's available
Yeah.
because we all just go to the Western approach. I go to Kaiser, I go to wherever I go, and oh, you have anxiety? Like you
Yeah.
said, here's Xanax, here's a pill.
Yeah.
So that's your solution.
Or they just keep pushing it down all the trauma that they
Yeah.
see, the sleepless nights, and at some point it's going to catch up, right? So
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely think the stigma, like I had a
Yeah.
booth at an event and there were some first responders. I'm like, hey, come talk about
Yeah.
brain training. They're like, I'm cool, walk
Right.
away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was like, no, my mind's fine. And I think people are a little nervous about like, well, what are you going to do to my brain? Or are you going to see what's on my mind? Or, so I get a lot of that. And it's like, no, you're going to relax. I don't care what's on your
Yeah.
mind. I don't see
Yeah.
what's on your mind. And it's not going to do anything to your brain. You're just going to feel better. You're going to
Yeah.
relax in a chair for 30 minutes and you're going to feel better. You're going to respond to stressors better. You're going to sleep better. So there's nothing scary. I mean, like you saw my son in the chair.
Yeah.
It's
He was totally relaxed.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's education.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, but it's just funny because a lot of the things we're talking about that neurofeedback has been shown to help with is sleep, anxiety, and that's probably the top panic attacks. Those are probably the top three that I see with first responders that is just plaguing our industry. And it's like, this would be perfect for them. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to hopefully do something with that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That'd be fun.
Something we've been talking about a little bit, we've been, grazing on is sleep.
Hmm.
What have you seen with people with sleep? And I remember, when we were at I met you many years ago at the Bulletproof Conference. That's how we
Yeah.
met. And I remember someone that was actually assisting you
Hmm.
was somebody who, after I did like the 15 minutes of training, she came by and I was like, hey, how's neurofeedback for you? Why did you get involved? And she said, man, I've had insomnia for so I don't know how many years. And she said something like after 10 sessions, it went away.
Hmm.
So what do you notice? And is that common? Is that like a really
Hmm.
common theme of people coming to see you is sleep issues?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have issues with sleep. I think we're in an epidemic of people just not sleeping well. And I think it's a combination of, people being on their phones before they go to bed.
Sure.
I mean, the things that we know as biohackers that you don't do, but yeah, certainly the most commonly reported thing that I get is, oh, the sleep is so much better. Oh, I'm sleeping amazing. And, even if they didn't have trouble with sleep coming in. But yeah, a lot of people do have issues with sleep. So, yeah, I think that's one of the first things that we see shift. And for me, I had lifelong issues with sleep and didn't even really realize what a problem that it was
Yeah.
until I started training with this and started sleeping well. I'm like, oh God, sleep is actually
Yeah.
amazing, But I had no idea, right? Because that's not. I would wake up kind of anxious in the middle of the night and
Oh,
just thoughts going and solving all the world's problems till 4 in the morning. So
yeah.
it was definitely life changing for me in that sense, for sure.
And then also something we've been talking about is kids. That's a big one.
Hmm.
Prior to interviewing you, I had people DMing me telling me ask about kids.
Hmm.
Um, so let's talk about the safety for kids. And then I know one of the questions I got is a friend of mine who's a biohacker. She has, I believe, an 8-year-old daughter who's getting migraines.
Hmm.
And so I want to, but let's first talk about kids. Obviously, we had my son who's 6 he's been doing it,
Hmm.
and you said, yeah, it's fine. And we had Enzo, we had your
Hmm.
son, he's 14. So talk to me about kids, the safety, if there is any issues with that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing for kids. No contraindications at all. I would say one of the things, I mean, actually for Enzo, uh, we never had him like assessed or diagnosed with anything, but he had a lot of issues when he was younger with sensory issues. So he couldn't have his
Mm,
hair cut. It would just like freak him out. Loud movie theaters. He couldn't go to a parade. It was just like his system was just overstimulated by things
mm,
and trouble focusing, lack of focus, hyper focus, kind of transitioning from one activity to the next. He would just
yeah.
like freak out in these outbursts and it was amazing to see the change for him. So he was, all those sensory things went away pretty quickly. And he started training when he was in second grade. And he had the same teacher from second to third grade. And I didn't even tell the teacher what I was doing or anything. And she grabbed me after the summer that he had been training. And she goes, "What happened to this kid?" I'm like, "What did he do now?" Because
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. He's
Yeah.
stuck a pencil in his ear or whatever. And she's like, "No, I don't understand. He's like this mature little boy, and he's taking his time with his work, and he's
Mm,
focused, and I don't know what happened to him." And so for just even a few years, I would have these parent-teacher conferences, and they would tell me this stuff about him, and I'd look over like, "Are you sure that's my
This is my
kid?
kid, right?
This
Yeah.
is, I'm sure." Yeah. But I mean, things like, okay, Enzo, turn the TV off, go, get your lunch and whatever. It would be like a battle.
That World War III.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yes.
so it was like one time I said, Enzo, go get ready for school or whatever. He turns off the TV, goes and gets ready. And my husband's like, what just happened? So little moments like that were like, oh, this is interesting. But it's been really powerful for him. And he'll use it, like he was telling you, for focus, or if he has a project that he needs to work on, or he even just wants to get into a book and kind of block out. I think as a teenager right now, they've got way too much stimulation
Yeah.
between everything, online. They're constantly on their phones. And so I think for him, he knows it sort of just quiets everything down, and he can just kind of get into his book. And so, but yeah, I think it's totally, I've worked with, babies. It doesn't
Really, babies?
matter how, I've worked with
Now,
pregnant
why would
women.
why would you work with a baby? I'm just,
A baby that's colicky, or,
okay.
it can really help calm their nervous system. So,
How do you get a baby to stay still with the electrodes
just,
and
if
stuff?
they're laying with their mom, or,
Yeah.
yeah. And pregnant women too. We have someone in our community that works a lot with, pregnant women who are under a lot of stress and trauma, which goes to the baby. And
Yeah,
so
of
they've
course.
seen some pretty amazing results with that, with the babies, being more calm and happy, and, so yeah, there's no contraindications. Any brain can benefit.
Yeah.
So just like a muscle, and I think, like, somebody was asking me about the athletes, and I said, right now it's, you have leg day, you have shoulder day, whatever, and in the future it's going to be a leg day and you have brain day, because
Yeah.
it's just, why would we ignore that,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
So anybody can benefit, at any age.
What about, and of course, you're not a doctor, I'm not a doctor, we're not diagnosing, we're not prescribing, anything like that. But what about, have you seen parents bringing their kids because of either ADHD or learning disorders or autism or anything like that? And has there been any just anecdotal, just from what you've seen in your office, as far as the results that they've been getting with their kids?
Yeah. I mean, Neuroptimal is considered a general well-being product, and so, it's not a treatment; it's brain training, and
Yeah.
really any brain can benefit. So, that said, I've had, many people bring in their kids for different diagnoses, and they benefit, however they're going to benefit. Like, I had a kid who was nonverbal. And a handful of sessions, he came in and was like, "Oh, hi, Angela. Mom's gonna get a coffee, and I'm gonna grab a book." And I'm like, "What just happened here?" So, they ended up buying a system, and they
Of
still
course.
continue to train. But yeah, I mean, the brain can learn. Any
Yes.
brain that can learn can create change. So, while we say, "Is it good for this? Is it good for that?"
Of course. The answer is
Just
yes.
the
Yes, yes,
answer
and
the
yes.
answer is just hop on there and
Yes.
see what happens, right? So whether it helps, I've worked with people that have just been told, like, okay, there's nothing else we can do for you. You have stage 4 cancer. It's, you know, this is it. And what I've seen with that is people come back and report, like, oh, I have this peace and calm and acceptance of what's happening.
Acceptance,
And
yeah.
so I've kind of seen the whole spectrum, right?
Yeah.
So it's been interesting to see all the different changes for different clients. So
What's a typical session like? Someone comes into you, they want to do some brain training. What does that look like for them, for the first timers?
yeah, so I mean, they'll come in, book an appointment and come in, and we'll kind of discuss what's going on for them. We have some intake forms that help us track progress. So because it's so seamless,
Mm-hmm.
so people come in and say, "Well, nothing's changed." I'm like, "How's your nail biting?" They're like, "I've never stopped biting my nails in my life. I didn't even
Yeah.
know that happened." Or so it's really being this like detective and helping them to identify what's changed for them.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll actually, I mean, I'll see a difference in somebody's energy or their mannerisms or their confidence, and um, so at any rate, they'll come in. We'll do an intake, and then they'll do their 30-minute brain training, and then they're on their way for the day. So, and then lately I brought in a lot of equipment to rent out to people. So I actually ship rentals all over the U.S. So
Wow.
I work with people that way. I just sent one to an MLB player, and so I showed him how to hook himself up. We're doing some, coaching with progress tracking and coaching on other stuff he wants to work on.
So cool.
But, he comes back from his day at spring training, hooks himself up for a session. His, sleep is already better. And so, so it's nice to have that flexibility as I was traveling to Bulletproof Conference and all these different conferences all over the country, and finding that people were like, well, how do I do this? And maybe there wasn't somebody in their community. So the rental systems are a great option for people to be able to take it home, train the whole family. And so right now I'm doing a lot more of that work just because I have so many balls in the air.
Yeah.
Running retreats in Mexico and whatever. So,
No big deal. No
yeah.
big deal. So people talk. I've seen many. I've seen different people say different things, and of course you can't say exactly. But I was going to ask just a general. How many sessions typically do people need to do before they really start to kind of see some change? Is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 20? Because I've seen those numbers thrown around. Obviously, I know the answer is probably it's different for everybody.
Yep.
But in your just general experience, because I'm assuming for most people, they come in with either anxiety, sleep, and let's just say learning disorders or ADHD, hyperactivity. So maybe just in general, those three, when do you start seeing noticeable shifts?
Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, it is different for everybody. I would say, so I used to do 10 packs of sessions, like a bundle of 10 sessions. And
Yeah.
I decided to shrink that down because it was a little bit for people to take on like that, commit to that big of a package. And so I thought, okay, well, let's see if I do packages of 5. And what I
Yeah.
found was within that 5 sessions, everybody would say, oh, I see something happening here. And so they would purchase another 5 because they would feel something happening, or we would be able to identify some little thing that had changed for them. We ran a pilot in a high tech company in San Francisco, and we ran, it was a 6-week, well, basically 5, but we had some makeup sessions, but they were doing 2 sessions a week. We would be on site at the company, and we measured all these different changes that happened for them. So across the 5 weeks or whatnot, the 10 sessions, we had, I think it was like a 70% reduction in concerns that they were dealing with. So we had some pretty significant changes across those 10 sessions for this particular group. People reporting more confidence, just going on the walk in the evening and feeling like they had never felt before. Just didn't even know that this existed for them, that they could feel that way. I get that comment a lot, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, you're providing, or they're finding this space that they didn't know they had access to. And so anxiety issues, worry, that kind of stuff, that was a lot of what was reported by those folks. So, and it just depends. Like, when are you done? It's like, when are you done working out or meditating? Or it's like you can stop. Well, you can't really stop eating, but you can stop meditating. And
You're going to know, obviously, if you stop, you're going to notice some of the effects fade off. But one of the things I did notice from their website, Neuroptimal, if you go there, they do say, like, the brain will change, so you will maintain a lot of what you've grown. But just
You
like
will.
anything else, you may have to go for a tune-up every now and then, which makes sense.
So, absolutely. So, unlike a muscle, you stop training the muscle, it fatigues or it atrophies. With the brain, with these changes, because the changes hold, it's like learning to ride a bike. So you can't unlearn it, but you can get wobbly. Like, I just rode a bike for the first time in a while. It was a little wobbly
Yeah.
at first, but then I got on and it was fine.
Yeah.
So it's that same idea. So maybe people come in and they train for 20 sessions, and then they're off and they're living their life and everything's great. And a year or so later, like I just had this happen yesterday, somebody had a traumatic event happen, and they had sort of their trouble sleeping triggered again. And that's their way of showing stress in the body. And so I need to come back for a tune-up. So, and then sometimes that'll just be like the one tune-up, and then they're like back and they're smooth sailing, that we call it, And so it's highly individual. I mean, I have people I will train every week for the rest of my life, maybe a couple days a week. My kids will go away to college with one of these. So I think just for general well-being and for, maintaining calm and,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I don't really notice a significant shift after a session, but I do notice like I start to hold my stress or I breathe more shallow. So after
Mm-hmm.
a session, I'll notice that my lungs are more expansive and I can breathe deeper. So I'm very aware of, where my central nervous system holds stress. And
Yeah.
so even though the changes are slight, I know that I'm helping to, maintain.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
How do most people feel after a session?
amazing.
But yeah, is it
Yeah.
usually? I'll tell you. For me personally, I just felt incredibly calm.
Yeah, calm is a word that a lot of people
You know.
describe. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, a lot of people just say calm, relaxed, more clarity of thought, more focused, more productive. A lot of comments that we got from our pilot project was like, "Oh, that internal battle of like you have to go to the gym, you should go to the gym." It just went away, and they would just go
Oh,
to the gym. And they noticed like, "Oh, what
interesting.
happened to that like monkey mind stuff?" So that is one of the changes that might be kind of subtle and seamless. So people start to, they might not be aware that that's happening, but
Yeah.
it's powerful because you're not sitting there with that internal battle.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
I'm getting ready to go into the lightning round questions with you.
Okay.
But before I do that, is there any question that I didn't ask you that you wish I had asked you?
Hmm. I think we touched on most everything.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. All right, ready for this?
Okay.
So lightning round questions. They're lightning round, but you can answer them however you want. They don't need to be
Okay.
one-word answers. If you want to be verbose, be verbose.
Okay.
Just answer the question however it comes up for you. All right. If the old you could see the new you, what would the new you say?
The new me to the old me.
Yeah, if the old you could see the new you,
Yes.
what would the new you say? So basically, it's one of those questions of saying,
Things are going to get better.
okay, perfect.
Yeah. Just stay on the path. Things are going to get better.
Yeah,
Things are going to be amazing.
love
Just
it.
trust the process.
Trust the process. I
Hmm.
love it. Is there anybody in the biohacking or neurofeedback world or just wellness world and anybody is there anybody that you're following right now or anybody that really inspires you?
I think I haven't mentioned his name, but our founder, one of our founders, Dr. Val Brown, he's definitely an inspiration. I mean, the lives that he's changed as a result of creating this incredible technology. He's definitely top on the list.
Yeah.
I would say people that I'm following or not really following so much, but I really like Joe Dispenza's work. I
Yeah.
think he's doing a lot to bring together the science of how our thoughts change our life and showing that process. So I've been reading some of his books and following his work. So
I just started getting into him. He's fascinating.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
he's great. Yeah, yeah.
If someone can't do neurofeedback right now for money or just location, it's not available to them, what would be like the one thing you would tell them that this is what you can start doing right now that's going to have tremendous impact?
Hmm. I would say, well, one, to get into nature because
Mm,
that's probably one of the most powerful things you can do, and just sitting with your thoughts for 5 minutes a day. Just you don't even have to try, and
yeah.
don't get overwhelmed with meditating. Just sit and be with yourself quietly for 5 minutes a day,
Yeah.
because I think we're just in this rat race, and so don't get overwhelmed with like I don't know how to meditate. Just sit quietly with your eyes closed and pay attention to your thoughts
Yes. I
and
love
let
that.
them flow through.
Yeah. Don't be
No
no
judgment.
judging, no
Hmm.
trying to pull them one way, just watching your mind
Yeah.
work. I love it. All right. Here's one I know you're really excited about.
Yes.
Any books? I'm a big reader. I've
Hmm.
had some amazing books really influence my life. Is there any 1 to 3 books that you would recommend people read?
Yeah, so I'm currently in this book club with my amazing Theta Healer. And so we're reading 2 books a month, one on abundance and one on spirit.
Mm,
And then we have a powwow and basically an energy clearing based on the content of the book. at the end of the month. But one of the ones that I really liked was Sacred Success by Barbara Stanny.
Okay.
That's about powerful women and stepping into your power and abundance. And the other is, I think it's Money and the Law of Attraction. That was an amazing book.
I'll put them all in
just
the show
finished.
notes.
Yeah. I'll send you a list to put
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah,
show
yeah.
notes. So,
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But books are amazing.
Money in the Law, and then anything else? So
The recent Joe Dispenza book, the Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, I think
that's
was a
his
really.
newest one?
I don't know if it's in. I don't actually know where it is in his.
Okay. Which,
list.
because I know he's got one, I think, called like Becoming Supernatural or something like that.
Yeah. That might be his newer book.
Okay.
But I think this one's really powerful for kind of.
It's called Breaking the Habit?
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Ooh, I
think
like
it
that
is,
title.
Or Myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, at any rate, so and I think it really shows like why this works and how changing just the simple act of changing your thoughts changes your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're both biohackers. Are there any hacks or rituals or practices that you do daily that are just game changers and you're surprised that other people don't do?
Well, I would say weekly, besides my neurofeedback.
Yeah.
Getting outside. So, for me, outside, sunshine, nature, walking outside. And I would say meditation, but sunshine and nature are like my thing. So,
I love it.
yeah. And if getting my feet in the sand and at the beach, the water is my thing. So,
Healing. Yeah.
yeah, I would say that's it.
Very cool.
Free biohacks.
Free, yeah, no, these are the best.
I've
Those are the
tried them
best.
all, and yeah.
Well, it's funny too because, I've gone down like a rat race sometimes of buying the new gear or the new equipment, and then I get it, and I'm like, yeah, sometimes it can be underwhelming. I'll get it, and I'm like, oh, this is cool for like a week, and then what I kind of get from that too is like this goes back to the mind. I'm like, at the end of the day, I think the strongest biohack is managing your emotions in your mind.
Yeah.
Like, you can buy all the gizmos and whatever you want. They're good.
Yeah.
They can optimize and augment your life. But at the end of the day, if you can't control your mind and like how you perceive yourself, your beliefs and all that stuff, none of the rest matters. You can't hack your way out of a problem,
No.
So
you can be the fittest, richest person in the world, but if you're not good up here and in here, forget it.
yeah.
It's definitely life-changing. So, and I would say our founder says it's when he talks about biohackers, he says it's like chasing the dragon. So, what's the next thing?
Yes.
Instead of being like, oh, we're actually okay right here, and actually most of the biohacks are free.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, he's right. Chasing the dragon. I'm good. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good with this.
Yeah.
So, and then one quick thing I just want to let everybody know is you're doing this theta healing. We didn't even touch on it, which is cool because you're gonna in the fall or summer you're gonna be going through a more intense class.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna have you back because I really want to get into that. That in its own is another episode, so I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
That's
It's
gonna
been
be
really
exciting.
powerful for me as well. So, yeah, but it's just kind of diving into limiting beliefs and helping people to clear those limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And why. I think the most interesting part is diving back and why these patterns keep repeating themselves in your life. So it's fascinating to look at, to work with clients and to see, okay, why does this continue to keep coming up? Because there's a belief there that's holding it in place.
Yeah.
And you can break that. You can bring your awareness to it and change that.
Besides the theta healing, is there any other exciting projects that you're working on that you're pumped about?
There
I
aren't
know you
enough,
have
there
a
aren't
hum-
enough
I- yeah.
hours in the day for the exciting projects I want to do. Yeah. I'm talking to a couple guys about putting together some retreats, some basically, some golf clinics for one thing, where we combine the brain training and some skills coaching and take people away for kind of a week-long intensive. Still doing my retreats in Mexico, which are amazing biohacking retreats that include Neuroptimal and other modalities.
Yeah.
So, and then, just waiting to hear if we get this new space where we'll have more space to offer the community brain training. So we're looking
So
at
cool.
doing like, hey, bring in it's first responder day,
Yeah.
and just funnel people through, but just to really, touch as many people as we can, and allow people to get better,
Yeah.
to feel
That's what it's
better.
all about.
Yeah, reduce suffering as well, because I think a lot of people are really isolated and suffering and think that they're alone. And
Yeah.
so, just in this day and age, we're very isolated in what we do, especially behind our screens. And so I think the community project of bringing people together and allowing people to talk to each other and train their brain next to somebody else and
Yeah.
just chat about things that, we're all dealing with. So that's kind of the next mission. And
Can't wait.
yeah.
And then last but not least, Angela, where can people find you?
So my website is www.mindbalanceneuro.com, and you'll have to put that in the show notes
I
because
will.
it's long.
It's all gonna. Don't worry. It's all going in there.
Yeah, same Mind Balance Neuro on Instagram, and so find me, and looking for more athletes to work with, and just
They're coming.
yeah,
Yeah. Get ready.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, so
Awesome.
yeah, this
Angela
was great.
Martinucci, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah,
Love you.
thank you. Love you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.